So I've got my horns in, but they're facing the wrong way. And there's a couple different ways to solve this. One of the reasons that I wanted to do this as a separate video is that there's a section here that kind of confuses people because we can flip the image two ways. Under image rotation, we can choose to flip the canvas horizontally, but the thing is that that flips the whole Photoshop document, all of the layers. So it all flips together, that doesn't help us. I'm going to do Control or Command Z to get that back. To flip just a layer or a selection is you simply choose what you want to flip. Here you can see that we've got this layer active already. Oh, and there's another change in the interface. They don't go blue anymore. Looks like they're just kind of a different shade of gray. So another change, not difficult to move past, but that's a change in the interface. So as we go back up to the Edit menu, I can go to Edit, Transform, and at the bottom of this menu, check it out. We've got all the same options that we saw under Image. But these will affect just the selected layer, or if we have an active selection, just whatever's in the selection. So here what we want to do is flip this layer horizontally. And perfect. And the horns are right where kind of we want them, at least facing the right way. Now, the other thing that I want to do is convert this to a smart object just to make sure that I don't do any damage to this layer. So I'm going to get it just so I can see it all. I don't need to do that, but it makes me feel better. So I'm going to go to Layer, Smart Objects, Convert to Smart Object. Now this is one of a multitude of ways to do it. I'm going to show you all of them. Here's one way. I can also go to Filter, Convert for Smart Filters. Remember we talked about this at the end of the last project. Here's where I was talking about how in the Filter menu, you can choose this option to convert the object to a smart object. And then also in the Layers panel itself, I can choose this menu and tell it to convert to a smart object. And I'll just click off of that. And the last thing I can do is right click on the layer itself and choose Convert to Smart Object. So there's a bunch of ways to convert an object to smart. And remember that when we convert it to smart, it's non-destructive. We can't ruin it. And at this point, we've got such a great selection here. I want to make sure that I just keep this so I can always get back to this point. Very little fanfare, but I do see my fancy icon here on my layer thumbnail, so I know that it's a smart object. And we've talked about transform, flipping it back and forth, but what I want to do now is my favorite way to make transformations. You can just hold down Control or Command T for transform. And what this does is a free transform. You can find it also here in the menu under Edit, Free Transform. That's how you can make this selection. But with this option selected, I can just sort of stretch the horns around, and I want this creature to be like a mythical creature, so I want the horns to be kind of big, a little bit overstated. I can also choose, as I'm doing this step to help line things up, I can turn the opacity down a little bit. And then I can see how the horns are sort of lining up with the lion's head. And so that's a little bit too low. But now I can sort of see the lion's head, I can see where my horns are, and of course I can make these changes later. Since I made it a smart object, I don't have to really worry about anything. But the more work I can do and get out of the way right now, the better. Another great thing about the free transform tool is that I can move the cursor just past the corners till I see this little double-headed arrow. And then I can also rotate it back and forth. And I think I want this to be a little bit more kind of straight horizontal here for the horns themselves. The photo is taken a little bit at an angle. And that, I think, is looking pretty good. I've got a tough looking lion here. So I'm going to just click my check mark, turn my opacity back up, and look at that. It looks totally realistic. Okay, maybe not yet, but we're getting there. And I also see that because I extended my horns, I've got it stretched off my canvas. In the next video, it's a real quick trick, but I want to show you a really great way to adjust your canvas when you need to sort of adjust it live like this.